Okay, welcome. If you are joining us, this is a conversation that I've wanted to have for a very long time about religious shame, how sex is incorporated into that, because this comes up so often. So I found a man to have that conversation with who is Eric Felters. So Eric joins us. He is a life coach who empowers gay men to heal from religious harm and reclaim their self-worth, their confidence, and their joy. So this has come up in so many conversations that I've had with guys, actually both gay and heterosexual, around religious shame when it comes to sex. I think it has is a big theme in performance anxiety and um, thoughts that we have that this is bad, this is wrong, should I be doing this? That can start from a very young age. So I'm really looking forward to getting into this today. Eric, thank you very much for being here.
Shay, thanks for having me. I'm excited to have this conversation too.
So I have put down just basically what I hear the most often, and I'm just going to share that as it is. And if you're listening to this, if a strict religious upbringing or religion has played quite an intense part in your life, I encourage you to just stay here as we go through these questions because this is most likely in your mind as well. All right, so I want to start off with an example of what I hear very often. The guy has grown up in a very religious household, and sex was just not something that was ever spoken about. Okay, they weren't necessarily, let's say for this question, they weren't necessarily shamed for it, but it was always, we can't talk about that. That's not a topic of conversation that we have here. And so, therefore, there was never an outlet or guidance or someone for them to speak to about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to hear your thoughts on that, how you feel like that shows up for you and the guys you work with, and how it
Oh,
impacts it.
100%. I mean, I'll tell a personal story. My parents are wonderful people. They are very affirming and love me and support me. Love my husband. Love and support him. But when I came out, God bless both of my parents. The first thing they both said to me, both independently said to me, was, "What did we ever do or say to make you feel like you couldn't talk to us about this?" I thought that was pretty cool. And also, upon reflection, I realized that it's not what my parents did or said, it's what they didn't say or do. It was an absence of conversation. I think the lack of conversation around sex and sexuality has done so many people a lot of damage. And you and I have had this conversation before, Shay, the importance of looking at your origin story and recognizing where did you adopt some of these negative beliefs. I don't know about where you live, but at least here, where I grew up, we never learned about sex for pleasure. We learned about sex for procreation.
Right.
And so sex is a duty. Sex
Yeah.
is something that's dirty, so save it for someone you love. And that's really messed up. So I think a lot of these conversations and lack thereof develop really maybe normal, but incredibly unhealthy viewpoints around sex and sexual identity and sexuality in general.
What do you think the impact is? Let's say if somebody's grown up in a house where it's just we don't talk about that, we
Yeah.
don't discuss it. Yeah, what do you think that I guess the blueprint that that person is handed down about sex when that happens?
Well, shame hates to be talked about. And so if we don't talk about something, if you kind of like, oh, just put it over, then we're just not going to talk about it, you develop an idea that it's bad.
Yeah.
And so what happens then when a child has questions or becomes curious about their body, touching themselves, what feels good, what doesn't, arousal, if they feel they can't share any of that as far as questions or curiosity with a loved one, someone they trust, they're going to develop ideas that it's wrong, sinful, bad, that they're alone in this, that no one would ever understand. So then they just don't talk about it. And of course, there is a line. Of course, there's an appropriate way to have conversations about sex and sexuality with children. But we adopt this belief that it's bad. Shame grows in dark spaces. Think about it this way. When you watch a scary movies are always scarier until you see the monster. Then you see the monster and you're like, that's all it is. And then the movie has to depend on jump scares because you've already seen it. That's because what's happening in your head is always so much scarier than what's happening in the real world.
Another thing that I hear comes up often is, and it linked to what you were just saying here, is when we're younger and we're exploring our body, which is totally natural and normal, either exploring our body, exploring with others, and in masturbation in this case, and we're learning through fairly strict religious upbringing, that masturbation, touching ourselves, is sinful and that we'd go to hell, and that if we do things like this, it's bad, that it's wrong. God doesn't uh, approve of this. What do we do about that? So, what do we do about if that was a continuous rhetoric that we heard either from parents or from the local pastor or whoever it may be when we were growing up? Um,
Yeah.
that leaves us with quite a messed up view every time that we masturbate. It's always there in the background, right? Of like, oh, I shouldn't be doing this.
Yeah. Well, again, we've said this before, origin story, right? Acknowledgement is arguably 80% of the work. And so I think we focus so much on the question, is it true? Sex, masturbation, pleasure is sinful. Is it true? Yes, here's all the documentation that says it's true. My past, my parents, the pastor, the Bible, right? And so instead of asking, is it true? Because you can also justify it in any direction, right? So instead of asking, is it true? What if we ask, is it helpful? Is it healthy? So start to identify how you treat yourself. Here's another question. How do I treat myself when I buy into this belief that touching myself is bad? Well, I feel bad. I feel icky. I feel small. I feel shame. Okay, another question. Who would I be if I never had this belief that touching myself was evil, bad, sinful? Who would I be? I'd be more at peace. Might not be so compulsive, right? If you struggle with thinking that touching yourself or that premarital sex is sinful, what happens if you bring that role play into the bedroom with your partner? This is why we have bad boys, right? This is why feeling like you're bad can actually be a turn on because shame and eroticism are so closely linked in your brain. So what happens if you in a safe way with someone that you love and trust? I'm not saying you have to love them. That's another conversation for a different day, but trust is important, I think. And it's consensual. What if you role play of, oh, we shouldn't be doing this, and just see what comes from that. I say this with my clients all the time, use compassionate curiosity. So when something comes up, when a thought comes up again, instead of saying, it's true, oh my gosh, I'm going to hell, we'll say like, is that helpful? Be compassionate and curious. I'm curious why I think that way. Where do I adopt that belief? Why do I feel this way?
The thing around masturbation is shameful or bad. I also heard the similar things around when guys were, let's say, going into puberty, and we start to have we become aware of sexual feelings or attraction towards others. And similar thing here, the feelings of shame kick in. And what I've heard from some guys is that they used to pray to God, or they told God that I will stop masturbating. Even in some cases, I've heard a couple of guys saying, "Oh, I won't get hard anymore. If you take these feelings
Yeah.
away, or these sexual feelings, if you please help me to stop that, then I'll stop this."
Yeah.
What do you say when this comes up?
Dear God. I mean, you're speaking to someone that has experienced that myself.
Really?
Oh, 100%. I have at one point in my life struggled as here's one symptom of shame is premature ejaculation, right? I struggled with that for a while and I thought that there was something wrong with me. And what I realized through a lot of the work that we're talking about, finding your origin story, asking yourself if it's helpful or not. How do you treat yourself when you buy into this belief? Who would you be without this belief? Can you forgive yourself for buying into this belief that you're bad for feeling this way or that it's going to be like this forever? All of those questions help us to recognize how we got to where we are. So for me, I used masturbation and porn as tools to get the gay out of me. And so growing up, I thought being gay was evil. And I literally thought I was getting it out of me because after I did it, as a horny eighth grader, right? Like all I thought about was that. And I got it out and I'm like, oh, I can calm down now. So at a young age, I developed these habits that I gotta get it out quickly because I don't like these feelings. I don't like that I like the feelings. So because I didn't allow myself to enjoy the enjoyment, I had to get it out of me. I carry that into adulthood. For a portion of my 20s, I would struggle with premature ejaculation because I adopted this belief at a young age that I had to get it out of me. And so got in my body that when I got aroused, my body would be like, okay, it's time to go. And you can course correct that, friends. And it starts by acknowledging it. And again, I know I've said this a lot, finding your origin story.
Thank you for being so honest about that, Eric.
Yeah, I wish more people would be. I think it's very common. And I just want people to know more than anything, it's fixable. You're not bad. We're just products of a sex negative culture.
Yeah, and I think if you're listening to this and can resonate particularly with the story that Eric just shared there, whether it's about wanting to get the gay out of us or whether it's about feeling wanting to get the thoughts of just having sexual attraction out of it, it's the same thing that's happening.
I wanna add something to that if I may. I
Mm.
don't write it off so quickly, listener. If you heard that or let's say Shay or I or someone else asks you, "Do you struggle yourself? Do you struggle with shame around this?" If your immediate answer is, "No, not at all," it might be on a subconscious level. So part of that compassionate curiosity is being open to some conscious layers.
I'm reading a book which you may be aware of at the moment called Existential Kink. And it talks about uh, in these areas where we squint, where we don't want to look at it, right, where there's this high feeling of shame around it. How do we know that? Is that usually when we think about it, so, oh, do I have some shame in this area, or is this a challenge for me? And there's the part of us that goes, no, no, no. If we tune into this sensation in our body, that usually there's like this feeling of a strong electrical current or something like that just runs through us when we think about that dark area or the shadow part that we don't want to look at. And that's usually a good sign for, okay, yeah, there's some work for us to do here.
Beautifully said. Yeah, bring your awareness into it. I do a brain dump every day. It's what we call it in the Shame for Gay Life program. We write in our journals for 5 minutes every day. And just so you guys know, like I practice what I preach. If I'm going to ask my clients to do it, I do it myself. And so I write every day. And so often when I'm starting to write and I think, ooh, I don't want to write about that. My next thought is, damn it, now I know I have to write about it. Because if you pull away from it, that's a sign that that's something to dig into. And here's why: fear. Fear prevents you from burning your hand on the stove more than once. So you burn your hand on the stove when you're a child, it hurts, and your body says, never go near a stove again, right? That's protecting you. But if you listen to that fear today, now you're not cooking. Now you're not eating. Now you're not enjoying a meal. So bring your awareness into that fear, and the fear will dissipate.
Okay, the next one's a big one, sex before marriage. With religious upbringing. So, um, not I'm not asking so much whether you agree with sex before marriage or not, but it is more about for people that have had a strict religious upbringing and they have had sex before marriage, or they're at a point where they're navigating this, and there's the part of them that naturally wants to, they're having sexual feelings for someone, or they did have sex before marriage and then they had a really bad experience with it. They've been shamed about it, or they've been told, if you do this, you're not a true Christian man, or you're not a true, whatever it may be. There's been the religious layers on top of it.
Sure. Again, I don't want to get too into the weeds of the Bible because it's not about if it's true or not. It's about if it's helpful and healthy or not. But I will say that that's not even biblical. It doesn't anywhere in the Bible say that you must be married to someone of the opposite sex before you can have sex with them. It doesn't say that. Let's look at the word sin, first of all. Sin means to miss the mark. I have to believe that means to miss the mark of God. If we believe that God is love and sin is the absence of God, then sin is to miss love, right? And I believe the opposite of love is fear. Is there something inherently sinful about having sex with someone before you have a legal document to be with them forever? No. I think it's easy for us to get archaic laws confused with morality. The Bible is not a book about morality. It can be used to help us inspire us to love, but it's also a historical context of what life was like at the time, right? And so it's I'm going to sound like a broken record, but it's the same as everything else. Just ask yourself, is it helpful to believe that? I have so many people, Shay, that come to me and say, how much masturbation is too much? Or is porn okay or not okay? Or I've had sex with X amount of people. Is that okay? There's not a marker. There's a great book by Matthias Roberts. It's on my bookshelf here called Beyond Shame. And Matthias Roberts, who is grew up Christian and is a therapist, talks about two paths. One path is the shameful path, and another path is the shameless path. Shameful. The path of I'm not going to have sex with anyone because I'm afraid, because I think it's wrong. The shameless path is I'm going to have, screw it. I'm going to have sex with everyone. It becomes maybe compulsive, maybe addictive. Sex in order to get a hit of dopamine to try to feel good about who you are, avoiding sex to avoid shame, to avoid that negativity. What do both of those have in common? They're two sides of the coin called shame. That's it. And so instead of doing something to avoid negative feelings, whether it's a lot of sex or no sex, what if you do things to feel connected in your own body and to feel good about who you are? I had a moment where I realized that sometimes I would feel shame after sex, other times I would not feel shame after sex. And so I felt like it was like rolling the dice. I didn't know if it was good or not. And a negative belief I adopted was not, is this healthy? It was, is this good? Am I okay? And I thought that if I was feeling shame at the time, that God was punishing me. Through a lot of work, I realized for me personally that when I felt shame, it was because something happened during the act of sex with that person that was non consensual. And what I mean by that is I would be in a moment where I realized that I didn't actually want to be doing this for one reason or another. I'm not talking about I said no and they forced him. That's
Right.
not, of course, that's something to be taken very seriously. But I'm saying like I ignored my intuition and I did it anyway. I don't want to call that sin, but I will say that I was missing the mark of love there because I guess I could call it sin based on my definition of that.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't listening to myself. I wasn't honoring my body in that moment. And to honor and to love your body is to listen to it.
I really love that distinction. I've never heard it worded in that way before. When guys speak to you, and let's say that they've had experiences in the past related to religion that have caused a lot of shame and bad feelings about sex, but they also want to balance being on a religious path, but feeling better about themselves, being able to have the kind of sexual life that they want to. What would you say the first few steps for being able to navigate exploring and feeling like we can open and expand ourselves sexually whilst also living a religious lifestyle?
I think it's possible to follow in the footsteps of Christ. And in doing so, you follow the first commandment, which is what? Love your neighbor how? Love your neighbor as you love yourself. As you love yourself. Loving yourself is a Christ-like act. What does love mean? Holding space for oneself, listening to oneself, respecting your body, who you are, finding God from within. And so I think when Jesus said that, enter the kingdom of heaven through me, I think that a lot of people, I think what Jesus was saying is rise up to my level, be like me. But I think that a lot of people thought that what it meant was push Jesus above us, dehumanize Jesus. And in doing so, we realize we think we're not worthy to be on that level. It's not what
Mhm.
Jesus wants for us. So I think finding God from within and continuing this work of asking curious questions, asking if it's helpful, if it's healthy, asking how can I best love myself, God, and the world around me, that is what Jesus wants from us. You could argue that denying your sexuality is denying a gift from God. If we are made in the image and likeness of God, and we are called to love ourselves and the world around us, then we are called to love all pieces of who we are as a wholehearted person.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that goes as well for denying wanting to enjoy intimacy with our partner, wanting to explore new things. You know, this is all part of the human experience, the experience of life on this planet, the experience of expanding love and denying those things. I really like this way of looking at it, is denying part of ourselves, which means that we're not loving or accepting part of ourselves. We're trying to push a part away.
Yeah. I just don't believe in a conditionally loving, cruel God. Hey, here's this body part that brings you so much pleasure, but don't touch it or you're going to go to hell. Like,
Right.
that's setting us up for failure. Why would God, who loves us unconditionally, do that? And it comes from a place of fear and control.
Okay, Eric, any final thoughts or things you would like to share for guys listening to this who have resonated with it or who've been through similar experiences and feel, yeah, this is speaking to me?
Yeah, I mean, there are a couple things I'll say. If this does speak to you, that's my job. I help other gay men. I empower other gay men to heal from this sort of shame. And so you can always click the link below and see if you qualify for a call with me to see if this 10-week program that we have is right for you. We've helped hundreds of men on this journey. We've worked with men in their 20s, we've worked with men in their 80s. It is never too early or too late to love yourself and to love the world around you as and because of who you are. And if not, that's okay too. I also want to say, as a final message, that you are made in the image and likeness of God, and that you are worthy of love and belonging, not in spite of who you are, but as and because of who you are. So if nothing else, remember that.
That's a beautiful message to finish with. Thank you. So as Eric mentioned, the links and the everything that's the most helpful that we've spoken about in this conversation today and where to go next. Yep, head to the comment section, the description section. You'll see that below. And if this has resonated with you, drop a comment on which part stood out to you, or if you have a question, something that you want to understand a bit more about, put that below, and we will do our best to get back to you and respond. And thank you for being here. And Eric, thank you for joining us and sharing this perspective. I've been waiting to have this conversation for a long time.
My pleasure.